I've spent the past 20 plus years making speeches that I think successfully inspired people and called them to action. This is something I know how to do. One thing amongst all of my doubts, of which I'm sure. And yet here I was a couple of weeks ago in front of my fellow lay ministers, standing at this very podium, waiting for their responses to my draft homily. As far as I was concerned, I had effectively laid out a pathway for us as a congregation to meet the challenges and opportunities that come with our transition. I had a perfect example of organizational transformation through a change in leadership that resulted in the creation of a network of love. I had this. Needless to say, I wasn't prepared for the feedback. It went like this. It's kind of boring. I didn't feel the transformation you talked about. Where's the tension? What do you mean by love? How does this relate to the church? Don't get me wrong. There was nothing in the delivery or content of the reaction that was mean-spirited or cavalier. It was provided with generosity, kindness, and openness. There was a spirit of, we want you to succeed, Andrew. So what am I taking away from this episode? Well, one of the challenges we face in our families, in our society and our church, is to be able to love ourselves and each other enough to hold honest truths. This requires that we show vulnerability and trust. And vulnerability and trust require time. Time to do the internal work we each need to do. Time to develop healthy relationships with those around us. Time to reflect and consider before reacting. Ironically, I had some experience of this 15 years ago in a previous job, where we created an atmosphere of love that allowed us, as staff and the organization as a whole, to flourish and realize our potential. We were providing scholarships and programming to undergraduate students from across Canada. One such program was an annual conference, and at the end of each day, the laureates discussed their experience in small groups. I remember one such debrief when, one after another, each laureate broke down, overwhelmed by the pressure they were under to perform at home, at school, and for us. We were shocked and we were troubled. How could we be part of the stress? We were all about fun, generosity, and bounty. They had taken a step of vulnerability, and were giving us feedback, and we could either look into the mirror or smile and move on. Once we got over ourselves, we were amazed by what they told us about their struggles and successes. We were no longer foundation staff people and students, but rather people in relationship with each other, willing to take risks and trust that we would be gentle and caring with each other, notwithstanding the power dynamic and the program realities. Another anecdote that I'll never forget is one day when my boss, the foundation CEO, cried after being hugged by one of our laureates at an event. Now let me be clear. My boss was a brilliant man who had held high positions in various levels of government, but he was not warm and cuddly. Somehow, we had become the kind of program where people showed their gratitude and warmth to one another. Similarly, when we had our final retreat before the foundation closed, I remember the love and openness that engulfed our team. As we went around the circle thanking each other, I remember being moved to tears, realizing that it was the first workplace where I was able to be myself. We cared deeply about the people with and for whom we worked. We were willing to take risks and show vulnerability. We trusted ourselves and each other implicitly. This is what I should have remembered a couple of weeks ago when I stood in front of my peers and waited for their feedback. I should have reminded myself to receive the information with openness and love. I wasn't going to learn anything by feeling discouraged and defensive, nor would I end up with a better end product. After all, I wasn't asked to deliver a sermon regarding what we needed to do as a congregation. The point was for me to take a risk and talk about a personal challenge, to trust myself, the other lay ministers, Ian, and you all. This is the task before me as I weather my transition from being on the church's board to being a regular congregant, from being in a position with a title at a big institution to someone who's starting over at the age of 60, from being a father of boys to being a father of men. The wonderful thing about the process of writing a homily and receiving feedback is that as hard as it is, it's exactly what I need at this time in my journey. But it's not easy. I don't know if I'm going to get to where I need to be, but I do know that without working towards a life full of love in which I take the time to build trust and show vulnerability, I surely won't get there.